yeah, so I guess I'll share my kind of background and my story first to give you a little bit of context, and then I'll kind of share with you like the evolution of how it started and where it's currently at. But basically, growing up, played every sport under the sun. As I got older, hockey took a bit of a priority. I didn't play professionally, but I did play AAA and did the whole junior hockey thing. And during that time, I had a few concussions. Never really thought anything of it. I was never really out of the lineup for more than like 2 to 3 weeks. But around the age of 20, I started to notice like the signs and symptoms of depression. It was like the start of my second year university. And within 2 months, I was in a really, really rough spot. Ended up dropping out of school, quitting hockey. I was pretty much drinking every day. And long story short, I was a mess. And eventually my parents stepped in and kind of pulled me out of there because I knew something was off. And we started looking for answers. So similar to you, first stop was the family doctor. Kind of walked in there and unpacked how I was feeling to the best of my ability. And without blinking an eye, he just told me I had depression, that there was a chemical imbalance in my brain, and that this little white pill was going to solve all my problems. So he prescribed me antidepressants, and I left his office with high hopes and expectations. But that was the start of 3.5 years seeing 30 plus doctors looking for an answer. So during that time, I saw naturopaths, I saw psychologists, cognitive behavioral therapists, fucking saw a hypnotist at one point. Was literally willing to just like do anything or try anything that could potentially help. But about 2 years into that whole debacle, I got some blood work done finally. And to my surprise, my testosterone level actually came back at 0. And, the doctor that I had at the time was like, "Oh, don't worry about it, man. Like, you're a healthy guy. Like it's definitely a mistake." But to me, it was a red flag. It was the only thing that came back and that could have explained why I was feeling that way. So I asked him to do the test again. And, although he resisted, we did it. And sure as shit, the same thing came back. He goes, "Okay, man, I think we have a problem. I'm going to refer you to an endocrinologist." So waited 6 months to get in and see the first guy. And similar to how I walked into the first doctor, kind of had these high hopes and expectations because I thought I knew what was wrong. And first thing that guy said was that he wasn't going to help. He basically accused me of taking steroids and figured that was the main reason that my natural production was shut off. Meanwhile, I haven't touched a drug and I just worked out and played sports my whole life. So that was super frustrating. Ended up seeing 3 more endocrinologists before I actually found a guy that would help. Ended up finding Dr. Comer out of Burlington, Ontario. He's actually the head doctor for the Toronto Rock. And basically I walked in there and that experience was completely different. So I walked in, I was wearing like my own Sound Grazed hockey jacket and a Chicago Blackhawks hat. And he just like, the first question he asked me is if I played sports. And I'm like, "Well, man, like we're not really here to talk about this shit, but I played hockey." He's like, "Okay, cool." He's like, "How many concussions have you had?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know, like 3 or 4. And, definitely had a few more." And he goes, "Okay, I think I know the answer." So basically Comer began to explain how when you get a concussion, it causes inflammation in the brain. And that inflammation can lead to the dysfunction of your pituitary. In my case, after doing the blood work and doing a few scans, that was the reason my pituitary was broken. And that's the reason my body wasn't producing the hormones it needed to function optimally. Comer rambled on kind of about the science for a little bit, but then gave me kind of the best news ever and told me that it could be fixed. So he basically put me on hormone replacement therapy that day. I started injections. And within a month, I was feeling a lot better. Within 3 months, I basically had my life back. I was all medication. I was back to myself. I was happy. I was motivated. I went back to school and, I picked everything back up. But, to get back to why I started head first, during that 3.5 years, 4 guys I actually played hockey with, or that I played hockey with, actually took their own lives. So, although I couldn't be certain that, they went through the exact same shit that I did, I thought that by, sharing my experience, I could potentially help somebody else. So I basically, packaged that 3.5 year experience into a Facebook post and put it out to the world about 4 years ago. And, to my surprise, it got a lot of attention. It had like 30 or 3,500 shares in the first week. And, from that, thousands of messages started pouring in. And That was probably one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my life, and was really able to point a lot of people in the right direction when it came to finding treatment, or at least provide people hope.
Mm-hmm.
So, I always wanted to do something with that. But right when I posted that was when I was starting my e-commerce company. So you probably don't know this, but I actually built and sold a handbag brand. So I
Oh,
sold,
no way.
yeah, so I sold purses online for 3 years, and grew and scaled the company, and we exited about a year and a half ago. So that kind of, was the reason why this whole project sat on the back burner for that long. But when we exited the business, I kind of picked this project back up, and started to get the ball rolling. So created the brand. The original mission of it was to make the world aware of the impact concussions have on hormones and mental health. Quickly realized that A, hormones are fucking complicated. B, I know absolutely nothing about them, and C, it just wasn't the direction that I wanted to go. So I've kind of like pivoted a few times now, and kind of at the beginning of 2020, I found a direction that I was really happy with. So in terms of Head First, it's basically just an extension of my personal brand, and there's really three core pillars to it. The first is the awareness piece, and kind of the narrative I have there is like, we always talk about how courageous it is to like speak up about concussions, or mental health, especially in like a sports setting. But every time we're doing that, we're just reinforcing how hard it is in the first place. So kind of the narrative I have is really, it's just the smart and the cool thing to do, right? Like, we only have one brain. You might as well fucking take care of it.
Yeah.
The second pillar is just trusted clinical resources. So as you and I both know from our experiences, it's very hard to find the right help. So I've got a trusted list of consolidated concussion and mental health resources that I point people to if they're looking for help from a clinical perspective. And then the third aspect is coaching. So this is fairly recent, but I actually got certified to be a mental performance coach for athletes. And back in the summer, I packaged up my experience and the core lessons that I've learned, dealing with my adversity, and building companies and playing sports and all that kind of stuff, into a program. It's called Head to Heart. I started running it in August, and I've ran 5 groups through it now. So it's going really well. The whole point of the program is it's not necessarily like a mental health program. Like, it's not necessarily meant for someone with anxiety and depression. It's more meant to help people who aren't in those clinical situations to basically go inside of themselves, and realize their potential. So it's called Head to Heart for a few different reasons, but the core reason is it's all about helping people get out of here and dive into here to develop mental clarity, build a better mindset, and take action on the things that they want.